She kept stealing my washing powder, so I gave her dye. I don't mind when my roommates borrow my stuff. We've all been there. All I ask is that they replace what they take. You drink my milk. Just buy me a new milk. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, my roommate doesn't seem to get this. She keeps taking my stuff, and when I ask her to please replace everything she takes, she'll buy one new thing, and forget to do it the next time despite having more money than me. I finally snapped, when I wanted to wash my clothes, but only found an empty box that used to contain my washing powder. I don't buy fancy or expensive stuff, and I don't care about brands. After using the last of my powder a week earlier, she could literally have bought the cheapest no-brand powder in the world and I would have been fine. I just snapped. I had told her over and over to not use my washing powder if she wasn't going to replace it, and I just had enough. I bought a new box of washing powder, some Dylon machine dye, mixed it with a bit of the washing powder and dumped it into the old box. When the dye is dry, it looks like washing powder, especially if you're not expecting it. I took my new box of washing powder to my room and waited. A week later I came home from work and saw her laundry hanging outside, all with a mysterious pink color. She stumped up to me and demanded to know what I had done. I told her I was going to dye my own clothes and someone had told me the shade would be lighter if I mixed it with powder, then asked her why she had used it when it had clearly been in a box with my name on it, when I had told her not to use it because she never replaced it. I don't think she believed me, but she finally got the message. She almost never takes my stuff, and when she does, she's quick to replace it. X bought himself a gift as a gift to me. So I did the same. About 4 months before Christmas 2018, my boyfriend at the time accidentally spilled a drink on his laptop and wrecked the thing. He couldn't afford a new one and it was his main source of entertainment, so I said he could borrow mine since I didn't use it that often. Everything was fine until Christmas that year. He still hadn't gotten a new laptop by that point, but I assumed that was because he was saving up to get himself a decent laptop rather than a crappy one he could just about afford. Anyway, he handed me my gift, and to my surprise it was a brand new laptop. I assumed that he bought me a laptop to replace my old one and was going to take my old laptop for himself. Nope. His gift to me was buying himself a new laptop so that he didn't have to use mine anymore. Nothing else. Just that. I was outraged. But then a petty thought crossed my mind. Little did he know that I'd fallen into a bit of money, so I had decided to surprise him with a top-of-the-range gaming laptop which was easily more than double the price and quality of the one that he bought himself. So I decided to give him his present. When he opened it, his eyes lit up, and he looked so excited at the prospect of his new laptop, but when he started to open it I took it back from him, and told him that it was actually for me, and my gift was letting him keep his new laptop without me trying to use it all of the time. Of course we got into a massive argument, and that eventually led to us breaking up. Thankfully we exchanged gifts a few days before Christmas so the day wasn't ruined. I returned the laptop and used the money to go on a spontaneous holiday with my friend for New Year's Eve. No regrets.
Ever wonder why I mow my lawn whenever you're having a garden party? Now we all like the occasional garden party with noise. However, my neighbor seems to be an entertainer. That is, every weekend evening they like to host a party, often in the garden, and have friends and several families with kids over. This family and their guests, rather than have civilized discussions, like to shout over each other, and generally whoever shouts the loudest gets to talk for a while. Let alone the kids who start screaming for attention. I used to let this go at first, but after a whole summer of them being louder than my TV or stereo in my own home I had to do something about it. So now I wait until they serve up the food, and everyone's plated up, before I crank up the lawnmower and drown them out, so they can no longer hear each other, and then scuttle off inside having to carry everything in and relay the table. Sometimes they come out after I'm done and set up and continue. It just so happens that I find a bush or tree that needs tending to with a hedge trimmer. Petty as hell, but it makes me feel better. Want move your patrol car to let the ambulance out, it'll let your sergeant deal with you. This happened around 4th of July, there was a small fender bender and emergency services get called out. My towing company sends me out by accident, not realizing the flatbed at the scene could tow both vehicles. There was 1 ambulance and 5 police cruisers, 3 cruisers blocking the road, 1 directing traffic, and then the asshole who showed up after the scene was secured. Asshole felt the need to park his cruiser crossway diagonally in front of the ambulance, not necessarily blocking the path, but if anyone has driven an ambulance they are a pain to reverse around obstacles. The imps asked the Ahole to move his cruiser, and he literally said when I'm ready and resumes chatting with the cop directing traffic. Another cruiser shows up, and it's the sergeant who knew me and the company I work for. He goes off to deal with the scene and the imps rush to him to talk to him about moving the cruiser. I see his stomping in my direction, and then walks to the cruiser and the door was locked. He called for the cop that pulled in front and he either didn't respond, ignore, or wasn't aware his superior was there. He looked pissed. He reached for the radio, but then he looked at me and asked what my drop fee was. 5 minutes go by and he waves to me to get the cruiser, so I line up and sting it and dragged it out of the way, and the ambulance drivers waved and left the area. He told me to keep the cruiser hooked because he wanted to teach the asshole a lesson. He walked over to the cop directing traffic and asshole and alerted him that he was getting towed. He rushed back and demanded I put the car down and that it's not a funny joke, but I reminded him that all tows are fair in the county if the car is illegally parked. He looked at the sergeant and the sergeant reminded him that the ordinance extends to emergency vehicles. Had to look this up. It's not. He tried to negotiate to 40, but my drop fee is 100. He hesitates but he pulls 520s from his wallet and I put his cruiser down. He got in his cruiser and he didn't look too happy as he pulled away. The sergeant bust out laughing and said that kid needed that. He told me has only been on the force less than a few weeks and then that he was acting like he ran the place as if he was the sergeant. We shook hands, talked about work and Hot Wheels, and off I went $100 richer.
Don't give me time to get out a sentence that would resolve your issue now and forevermore. Suffer until you work it out for yourself. My roommate came out of the bathroom 7 weeks ago complaining that the perforations on the toilet roll weren't lining up, and it was annoying. I took a breath in order to smack a life pro tip down on him like a revelation from the universe. Before I could utter a solitary syllable, he says,
"It's your fault, it's that crappy paper you buy,"
and toddles back into his lair to jack it to goat videos on YouTube. Pure speculation on my part. Having encountered this TP issue myself in the past and having resolved it, I knew how to fix it. I would have happily shared that knowledge with him had he not blamed me, and accused me of being some sort of shitrag Scrooge. So for just under 2 months, whenever I use the citywide network that connects all our asses together, so that they can talk to each other and dropload packets, I have been happily using TP with perfectly aligned perforations, and then setting the roll back to its unaligned state before I leave. He has not stopped complaining about it, how it's every roll now and how this brand's factory equipment is obviously malfunctioning. Please note that over this 49-day period, he's never decided to buy his own TP of a different brand. He continues to use the paper I pay for despite this cruel cosmic injustice visited upon him. He comes out from his lair this morning, fresh from romancing the goats no doubt, possibly, to declare,
"Hey, I emailed TP Company, and they said the issue was an easy fix, and that it was strange to have happened to so many rolls, and that it could be a bad batch. All we have to do."
It's at this point I jumped in is to separate the plies and bring the top ply around the roll to underneath what was the bottom ply, and now the perforations align. He looked at me for a good 30 seconds and then said,
"You've known that this whole time, haven't you? You've been deliberately doing it to annoy me. Why?"
And I reminded him of the first instance of his complaints, and the accusation that it was my fault, and that I decided that if I was going to be blamed for something, then it might as well actually be my fault, and that every instance of his complaining since has been like music to my petty little ears, and if he could cry now it would really be the cherry on the cake. He looked at me and said,
"Man, you're something else,"
and toddled back off to recommence his ponderful yearnings for the unholy coupling of man and goat, probably. Now I feel all lovely inside and have decided to share it with all of you.